Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Oversteer podcast. This is another special episode. I am Greek. We are a Greek show, but sometimes if you have the opportunity to have a guest that can comment on something apart from F1 or apart from the norm that we have here in the show, it's a pretty big privilege and honor for us. This Monday, we have the opportunity to talk with Mr. Colin Clark. Colin, thank you.
Demetrius, you're very welcome. I'm actually quite excited to be a guest on your podcast. It's very kind of you to invite me along.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I guess a lot of your audience probably aren't familiar with what I do. I work in the World Rally Championship, and I have done in various forms for the last 20 years or so. I started off as a sponsor. I worked with one of the big tobacco companies and then moved into media. I did rally radio for many years. Now work for a company called Dirtfish, and we create media from the World Rally Championship. So, yeah, I'm a commentator, and I comment and I give opinion and make videos on the World Rally Championship. It's a very, very fortunate and privileged position to be in.
Voice of Rally is a proper fixture after every rally round, which is amazing. I always watch it.
Yeah.
Of course, I leave every link that routes everyone to you and your Twitter profile and your YouTube account, of course. It's been a pretty up and down season so far. I mean, it's a full season after last year's debacle with COVID-19 and all the cancellations and that waiting game we had to go through. But it's a pretty intriguing one. We see the same faces winning, yes, maybe, but we've seen some surprises, some mishaps. It's a pretty big full of surprises season.
Well, I think it could be. I really think it could be. And you're absolutely right. We're very, very fortunate. And it does look right now as if we're going to get a full season. I think, there's still debate as to whether or not one or two events might happen later on in the year, but fingers crossed, we are going to get a full season. We obviously saw the Acropolis rally being included again which rally dropped out? Can't remember. I think it was to replace Chile, I think, wasn't it? The Acropolis. So, there are a number of events on standby. We will get, I'm certain, a full season this year, which is quite different to last year. So, yeah, it's shaping up to be another. Listen, last year was an interesting season, and Sebastian Ogier was a very, very worthy champion last year. But this year we are going to get 12 rounds, I think, at least 12 rounds. And we're going to have another fight. And right now, and okay, we're only 5 rounds into the season, it looks as if the battle is once again going to be between Ogier and his teammate Elfyn Evans. The Hyundai drivers. Quentin Neuville's having a decent year. He had that really silly mistake that he made where was the mistake he made? Portugal. Really silly mistake with his pace notes, made a wrong pace note and was way too optimistic through a corner and that put an end to his rally. But other than that, Neuville's been fairly consistent. Hasn't really looked like he's going to win a rally. The guy who's a little bit intriguing, mind you, is Tanak, who's taken quite some time to get to grips with that Hyundai. Now, I think it's fair to say if we look back to Croatia, he is still very much struggling with that car on tarmac, but on gravel, he's going fast. He's going really fast. He was the fastest driver in Portugal until he had that unfortunate suspension collapse, and we don't really know quite what happened there yet. And then he hit that rock, didn't he, in just a couple of weeks ago in Sardinia, and up to that point he was very much the fastest driver there. So what can Tanak do for the rest of the season? I think that's what's really intriguing a lot of us. Is he too far behind now, 50 odd points behind Ogier? Is he too far behind to make a championship challenge? It is shaping up though, and it's shaping up to be a really interesting year, as you say.
Yeah, it's not very fair of him, to see that he's only 1 point ahead of Taka Katsuta.
Yes.
Not by any means a bad driver, the Japanese one, but, it's not where Ott is.
No, and you know what? If things had been different for Ott,
his level.
Yeah, and if things had been different for him in the past 2 events, he could have been potentially leading the championship. He certainly would have been a heck of a lot closer to Ogier leading the championship or whoever would have been. He could have won Portugal and he could have won in Sardinia. And had that been the case, the championship would have looked very different. And as you say, right now he is down in fourth or fifth place, just a point ahead of Katsuta, who's doing an incredible job, you'd have to say, this year. For many people, the surprise of the season. I'm not surprised. I had a feeling he would show us something special. Katsuta-san is still very much learning and has still got potential to get even quicker and even better. But, as you say, Tanak just a point ahead of him, not what we expected at all at this point.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, but we don't have to take anything away from Seb Ogier because, the guy is a machine. I was properly amazed by the driving he did on Friday in Sardinia, where he had to clean up the roads and all because he started first on the road, and it was pretty fascinating. He's a 35-year-old by now, which is not by any means a very old driver. I mean, Juha Kankkunen was winning rallies in his 40s, but the fact that he really seemed like he pushed himself and pushed the Yaris WRC car. I mean, it's amazing to see a champion of his caliber be so thirsty.
Yeah, listen,
to win.
He's got nothing left to prove. That is absolutely without any doubt. He is, in my view, and this will be a debate that rages on, he is the greatest driver that we've ever seen. And the fact that he can win in just about any car that he gets into is testament, I think, to that. And he showed in Sardinia that he still has a desire to win. He still has a desire to show what he can do. He doesn't have to, but he does. And he can show us what he can do. And he's willing to take risks. And he's not at the point in his career where he is throttling back on that risk level. He is willing to take risks. And we don't really give him, I think, enough credit for the drives that he puts in when he's leading the championship on gravel on that opening day, because it's not just a survival day for him. It's very much a day of strategy where he knows that if he's going to get a good result, he has to contain that time loss. And there's only one way of doing that, and that is by taking calculated risks, by pushing to the max on the Friday morning, normally on the Friday morning, because normally we have the first opening loop of stages in the morning. We didn't in Sardinia because they had things a little different. But through the first pass, he takes risks and he is absolutely on the limit. He did an unbelievable job in Sardinia, which, for maybe some of your listeners who are not so familiar with rallying, when you've got a gravel road, there's a lot of loose stones on the surface, and they can be anything from really fine sandy stones to really quite big gravelly stones. And clearly when you're the first car on the road, the car just it's trying to dig through that loose surface to get down to the harder base, which gives you more grip and ultimately gives you more speed. When you're first on the road, you're cleaning away that loose stuff, and you hemorrhage time. You lose a lot of time, and Sardinia is one of the most punishing because it's so sandy. And then when you get through it, it's so hard. So when you get down to cars 6, 7 or 8 on the road and they've got this lovely clean surface, they can really go some. But Ogier did a magnificent job. He really did. And he kept himself there or thereabouts on the Friday in Sardinia. And, and he went on to win the event and used every ounce of his experience and his knowledge and his intelligence. He's a very, very, very intelligent driver. He knows when to push. He knows when not to push. He knows when he's got to give himself a little margin. And he knows what a little margin is, because a little margin for some drivers can soon become a massive time loss. Whereas Ogier knows. He knows the corners where he needs the margin, and he knows just how much of a margin to give himself without throwing too much time away. It's experience, it's intelligence, it's desire, it's everything that, as you say, maybe you wouldn't expect in a guy that's well towards the end of his career, but he's still got it all and he's still pushing hard.
Do we have any, do we believe really that he will continue in 2022 if he does win this year's championship? Because that's what first reported by dirtfish.com.
Yeah.
We saw, and
we have, it was an interesting opinion piece that my colleague David Evans wrote. And he was very much hedging his bets. And it's what David wrote is based on what he's hearing around the service park and from various characters within the teams, and to some degree from Ogier himself. Look, I think there isn't a chance he will stay. I think if he does win the title this year, he'll be on 8 championships. He'll only be 1 away from that record that Loeb set of 9 championships. And he could be tempted. He could well be tempted to have another go next year. On top of that, he can command a massive salary. A massive salary. He is a young man. He's got a lot of years in front of him. 1 more year, I think it's very, very possible that if he wins the title this year, he might say, yeah, I'm going to go for 9, and yep, why not? If they're going to pay me that amount of money, I'm going to take it and we'll go for it. And once again, he will be the man to beat. If he stays next year, he'll be the man to beat next year. No question about that.
Even though we will be with a different cars, different generation, with the hybrid engines and all. I mean, do you believe that he will make the difference based on his driver skills and his character and all?
Yeah, these new cars are going to be interesting because they're very, very different from the current cars. There's no active diff in them. They've got this hybrid power unit, sequential gearbox. Very, very different cars to drive from the cars that we've currently driven. And Ogier is the sort of driver who will adapt very, very quickly. There are some drivers it will suit. There are other drivers who will take a little bit of time to get used to this new car. What's going to be interesting is to see just which of these 3 cars is going to be the most competitive. What we saw when the 2017 cars came out was the M Sport, who had the least number of kilometres of testing. They started late. I think their car didn't really start testing until maybe it was the June of 2016. They only got about 5,000 or 6,000 kilometres on that car, but it was the best car. No doubt it was the best car, and Ogier used it to his benefit to claim 2 more drivers' titles. Who is going to develop the best car this time around? It's difficult to say. It's really difficult to say. Is there margin within the new regulations for someone to do something really clever and come up with something that gives them a decent competitive advantage? That's always possible. That is always possible as well. So what I would say is that if Ogier does stay, more than likely he will stay with Toyota. Toyota are a massively well-funded team, and he clearly feels comfortable there with that team now. He clearly feels comfortable in the car. He's got great teammates in Elvin Evans and Kalle Rovanperä and Katsuta-san as well. So I think if he does stay, in fact, I know if he stays, I really can't see him going back to M Sport purely because I think he would go back. If salaries weren't an issue, if money wasn't an issue, if all these drivers were doing it for the love of the sport and not for the money, which clearly they're not, and rightly so, they put their lives on the line on every stage, they deserve to be paid the big bucks. But if it wasn't about salaries and there was no salary in rallying, I think he might consider going back to M Sport because he's got such a wonderful relationship with Malcolm Wilson and everyone at M Sport. But if he does stay, 99.9% sure he will stay with Toyota.
Yeah, that would be amazing because, sometimes in F1, because that's my field of expertise, we are a bit moaning because of maybe Kimi Raikkonen's or Fernando Alonso's choice to stay, or in case of Fernando, come back.
Yeah.
But Seb Ogier is a different kind of. He to close off the Seb Ogier chapter of our episode. Seb Ogier must be in that level of a driver like his the other Frenchman was Leb.
Yeah.
He commanded the fortune and the opportunities he had.
Yeah.
He said, I want to continue with Citroën. I don't want to continue with Citroën. Then he went to Hyundai to have a bit of fun, and he really was fast in some of the cases. And Ogier will maybe if he continues with Toyota, the point will not be, okay, let's have fun. It will be number nine or nothing.
Yeah. Listen, he's in a very different position from, you mentioned 2 F1 drivers there, Raikkonen and Alonso. Alonso was a great champion. He was a great champion, but Alonso's heyday was 4 or 5 years ago. Alonso has more than just plateaued in his career, is perhaps just on that slight downward slope. And Kimi Räikkönen is exactly the same. In fact, he's very much on the downward slope. But both those drivers do a job in F1 and quite probably deserve to be where they are. It's a totally different situation with Seb Ogier. Ogier is still the man to beat in rallying. He is still, his powers, his ability in that car is still absolutely up there, the very, very best in the world. So, he's not in a position where he just wants to turn up for fun. He turns up because he knows he can win and he wants to win. And if he stays for another year, yes, it will be partly because they'll pay him very, very handsomely, every single penny of which he will deserve. But also because he knows he can win rallies. He knows he can win championship number 9. And the people who are paying him handsomely know he's probably their best bet for winning that driver's title. So very, very, very different situations from the other drivers we mentioned there. And Ogier still absolutely 100% at the top of his game.
And you can't say that Elfyn Evans is no slouch. I mean, he's pretty fast, and he was on the verge of becoming a champion last year. So he continues in that trend as well. He's the only one who can win in that Toyota Yaris WRC car. And the relationship that has with the champion is amazing.
It is incredible. And you know what? Evans was the surprise of last season. Evans really upped his game. He was a very, very good driver when he was at M Sport, no question about that. But he certainly didn't look like a championship-winning driver when he was at M Sport. Last year, he got into that car. He found a new... I almost said a new lease of life with Toyota. Probably not true, yeah. but he had a very different approach with Toyota. Toyota didn't care if he binned the car. Toyota didn't care if he took a wing off or if he took a bumper off. Didn't care. They just wanted him to go fast, score points, score podiums, win rallies. And that is what he did. And he found himself, as you say, at the end of the year, within a hair's breadth of winning the championship. And he's continued. If anything, he's improved this year. But what's interesting about Evans is that he hasn't hit top gear yet this year. Every single event, he has struggled with the car. Even the event that he won, where did he win? He won in, I can't remember where he won, but he won
in Portugal.
Portugal, yes, he did. Even there, he didn't look to be on his best form, and he didn't sound as if he was on his best form. It's the sign of a champion, isn't it? They talk about soccer teams, and the championship-winning soccer teams are the ones that can grind out results when they're not playing well. They're still scoring points. They're still winning by the odd goal. Well, Elfyn Evans is the equivalent of that in rallying. He isn't playing well, but he's still getting podiums. He's still getting second places. He's still consistently scoring points, and that is the sign of a champion in waiting for me. He really, when he does find a comfortable setup on the opening day of a rally and he continues with that setup through the rally, he will be hard to beat, because he's hard to beat right now and he's not happy. He's not comfortable. It's not that he's not happy with the car. He's just not happy with how things are coming together. You've got to be, you've got to have 100% confidence in the way the car is going to respond, how it's set up, how it's going to turn in. How's it going to react in the ruts when the ruts start to appear? And he's not at one with that car yet. But my goodness me, he's banging in some remarkably impressive results. And, I can absolutely see it going right down to the final event and it being a battle between Ogier and Evans again. And we may get a Hyundai driver, muscling his way into that fight, but it will take a set of circumstances for that to happen. But yeah, Elfyn Evans for me was the surprise of last year, and he has continued with that kind of impressive form this year. And as I say, when it does all come together for him, look out, because he will be remarkably fast and remarkably difficult to beat.
And I believe the key for his for his performance this year, and the fact that he's only 11 points behind Ogier, is the consistency he has shown. He's pretty bang on. He hasn't fallen behind the 5th position in the final standings of every rally. He has taken some good amount of points in the power stages. I mean, he could have done better in Croatia, or he could have been in the top 5 in Italy, but he lost some points there. So maybe the gap would be a lot smaller. But the fact that he's up there and he's consistently pushing a guy that has 7 world championships, he's considered one of the greatest ever to grace a special stage and all that. It's pretty remarkable. Maybe I believe the Welshman had it always. I'm sorry, in him. I don't think that some form of talent graced him before the 2019 season. He always had that talent. He just wasn't able to show it. Maybe the environment in M Sport, maybe the car didn't suit him. Boom, he goes to Toyota and he's a pretty fast man, and that's remarkable to see, because I believe British folks really want to see a guy of their own.
Well, absolutely. It's been too long. But no, you've absolutely nailed it. You've nailed it with Evans. It was, he always had the talent. He always had the ability. Learning his rally craft was a different process at M Sport, a really different process. I mean, Malcolm Wilson is brilliant at bringing forward young talent, but you're very much charged with bringing that car home. If you roll a car, if you write a car off, then you're in trouble. Potentially, there's not another car for the next event, and Malcolm isn't very happy. And an unhappy Malcolm Wilson is not an easy character to deal with. And I think maybe the environment at M Sport didn't allow him to absolutely open up. Which is what he's done at Toyota, and he is still learning. He's still very, very much learning, Elfyn Evans, and he's got a wealth of experience to call upon, because he had some fairly hard knocks. He's had some really hard knocks throughout his career. But Elfyn Evans, is a true championship contender and will be a great champion should he win this year. And again, he'd have been a thoroughly deserving champion last year had he won in Monza. He will be a thoroughly deserving champion if he wins this year. A different champion. He's not a Colin McRae.
Not even a Richard Burns.
Maybe you'd argue he's not even a Richard Burns, but he is his own man, and he does things his own way. He's a very unassuming character, a lovely guy to talk to, there's no ego about Elfyn Evans whatsoever. He just goes out, gets on with it, does his job, and does it remarkably well, and has increasingly done it with more success over the last year or two. And I think he'll be there or thereabouts. As I say, if someone in that Toyota team will have an issue before the end of the year somewhere, it'll be a mechanical issue, it'll be a smallest of mistake that perhaps means that they only score a point or two on one event. Now, if that happens to be Seb Ogier, then Elfyn Evans will be in a position to capitalise. If he can have a trouble-free year, which is a massive ask, particularly with some really difficult rallies coming. We've obviously got Safari.
Safari and maybe our rally in Greece.
And Acropolis, really difficult rallies. But don't forget, Elfyn Evans is really fast on tarmac, really, really fast. And we go to Ypres. Now, I believe he's done Ypres before, so he's got a little bit of experience. Neuville will be very, very hard to beat there. We then go to Spain, and then we go to Japan at the end of the year. 3 tarmac rallies. Now, I'm not discounting Seb Ogier at all, because we know how comfortable he is on tarmac, but Evans is ultra competitive on tarmac. So, if Ogier should have any issue whatsoever between now and the end of the year, look out. Elfyn Evans will be right there.
And if Elfyn has a problem as well, maybe we should not count out the Thierry Neuville situation, because
maybe not.
He's pretty good. The biggest hurdle in his championship so far is the fact that he scored no points in the regular stages, and he only scored 4 points in Portugal. He went out with only 4 points, which was really unfortunate. But I mean, not only Thierry. I mean, Ott as well. You say him Oit, we say him Ott. What's the name?
Well, I used to call him Ott, but apparently, if you're in Estonia, apparently it's Oit, yeah, and it's probably not even Oit. It's probably some slightly different pronunciation than Oit. I don't know, but I don't think he gets too offended with either pronunciation.
Yeah, he's a pretty chill guy. He seems so.
He is.
And my personal favorite, I don't know, maybe because I used to like Tommi Mäkinen, and I see in Tanak some of his, demeanor, and
there is. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
nonsense.
Yeah. Oh, no nonsense whatsoever with Tanak. None whatsoever.
Yeah. You can't. He went out of the car. He looked at the 4 tires after the Saturday stages where he not the after, the Saturday, the Friday stages. He finished the Friday stages and he went out after the last stage, and he was looking at the tires, and you could not see any emotion on the man. He may be furious about the tires, and if you don't ask him, he won't tell you. You won't see it in his face, written all over.
No, you wouldn't want to play poker against him, would you? That's for sure.
Yeah, no, oh my God, no. He'll take the whole table and live with it.
I think he would.
So the Hyundai situation, we grazed over it, and we can close up the championship chapter like that. The Hyundai situation, I mean, they are both immensely talented drivers. Thierry has shown again and again that he can call Alzenau his home, and it may actually be after 8 seasons and 2 more that he'll have there. Tanak really has acclimatized himself in the I-20, especially in the rally stages where the Hyundai seems a bit faster, maybe, in some occasions. But they both had some unlucky moments. Maybe Tanak pushes his luck. I don't know. I mean, the guy literally saw a rock in his way in the race line, if we can call it like that. He didn't go off, and this completely ruined his chances for the win, which he may as well have taken if he didn't have that mishap. So what's next for them? Can they be considered championship contenders after all these mishaps, after 6 races?
Well, can they be championship contenders? Yeah, I think they can. I think they can, and I think if we look at it, if we look at it objectively, we might say that Thierry Neuville is the one that if someone is going to stop the Toyotas, it's probably going to be Neuville, just because he's got 25 points more or so than Tanak just now. But things can change around so quickly. We've seen it happening in the past. There's 30 points available to the winner of the rally if they win the power stage as well, and you can turn things around quickly. But I honestly believe with as we've already mentioned, 3 tarmac rounds in the final 6 or 7 rounds of the season. We saw how much Tanak struggled on tarmac in Croatia. Neuville is very comfortable on the tarmac in that Hyundai. It is a difficult car to drive on tarmac. There is absolutely no question about that. We've seen others getting into it. We've seen Sebastian Loeb getting into it, struggling on tarmac. We've seen Mikkelsen struggling on tarmac. Craig Breen struggling on tarmac. And Tanak is clearly also struggling on tarmac. You need a particular style, and someone gave me a really good insight into the different styles and the way that's required to drive that car, and they pointed me towards the power stage in Croatia and said, watch the onboards from Neuville and watch the onboards from Tanak and count how many times they go for the handbrake, and they use the handbrake to help that car turn. Now, this guy told me that Tanak went for the handbrake 5 times in the stage, and Neuville went for the handbrake 25 times. 25 times, using the handbrake a lot more. And this is, we hear it very often. We hear it even from Danny Sordo. There's understeer in that car. If there's understeer and the car's not turning in, you have to use the handbrake. And Neuville's mastered that. And Neuville's mastered that in 4th, 5th and 6th gear. He's comfortable to give a little dab on that handbrake in 5th gear. Most people wouldn't go anywhere near it in 5th gear. But he knows that that's how you make that car turn in. And it's a car that he developed. He didn't develop, he was involved in the development of, and he is very, very competitive in that car because he gets it to work for him. All those other drivers I've mentioned cannot get that car to work for them on tarmac. It's a different matter now on gravel. It looks as if Tanak does have the mastering of the car on gravel, but on tarmac, when we have 3 rounds coming up, you got to say he's got to find something really, really quickly like Tanak. Otherwise, he has no chance of winning the championship. And if he has no chance of winning the championship, he should be in a position, hopefully, where he can support Neuville in Neuville's efforts to upset the Toyotas. But yeah, for me, the Hyundais have come on a long way. Remember, they weren't really even that competitive before Tanak came along. So before last year, before 2020, they really struggled on particularly fast gravel rallies. Finland, even in the old generation of World Rally cars, the Hyundais were absolutely awful. They did an awful lot of work with Tanak in testing, just after lockdown last year. And they made some really strong improvements. And we saw how quick it was when we were in Estonia last year. We'll see that again in Estonia this year. We'll see it in Finland. The car on gravel, and we've seen it in the last two rallies, even on slower, rougher gravel rallies, it's fast. But the question mark for their Drivers' Championship aspirations, the question mark is over the performance of that car on tarmac. And the only guy, it appears, who can get the best out of that car right now is Thierry Neuville. So my argument would be, you put everything behind Neuville for the Drivers' Championship. And it's something that Tanak will not like. But for me, Tanak becomes a wingman to Thierry Neuville. Now, are we calling that a little bit early? Perhaps. Perhaps a rally or two early. But if things don't change dramatically in Safari and then in Estonia in terms of the Drivers' Championship, then the only option I think that Hyundai will have is to say, put all our hopes behind Neuville for the Drivers' Championship. Thierry Neuville, Danny Sordo, Craig Breen, whoever's in that third car, supports Neuville in his efforts to win the Drivers' Championship. It'll take something special because I honestly can't see the Toyotas being beaten just now. But the guy who's brilliant at employing strategy and has used it best over the past 3 seasons while he's been in charge is Andrea Adamo. If there's one man that understands how to use strategy in rallying, he is the man. So we'll wait and we'll see what he does. He would be reluctant to give those kind of instructions to Ott Tanak, but he may be forced to have that conversation with Tanak and say, look, you are 50 odd points behind. Chances of you winning the driver's title are absolutely minimal. We need to put everything behind Thierry. That will be interesting.
Yeah, and it's pretty intriguing that you say this because Thierry literally said a couple of days ago that he is a team player, and if he is asked to help Ott, he will do it. But I was perplexed by that because, as you say, and as we can see in the championship standings, he is in front of him and by a pretty hefty margin. So it's like, maybe it's that, is that what you say? It's a bit of a projection. You say
Absolutely.
that to make the other guy think, okay, if he's available and he wants and he's okay to do that for me, maybe I can, take a step back and do the same for him if I'm asked to, which he will totally be asked to if the situation commands it and if Andrea Adamo really has to do that. Thierry is no slouch in strategy as well. The guy knows how to maneuver around, in terms of communicating his thoughts and trying to make the others think that he's okay with some things, or it's fine, he's a bit laid back, but then he goes on the stage and boom, he beats you.
Yeah.
He makes you feel a bit of, okay, yeah, sure, the guy's fast, but he's not there yet and he can't compete with me because of that and this or that. And then he's fast. And that's what I like about Hyundai as a whole. The fact that they have the most amazing team principal of all time in rallying, maybe. I love Andrea. If I could ever speak with him even for 5 minutes, I would be the happiest journalist alive.
Yeah. Well, he talks to everyone and anyone. He is a very, very accommodating man. But if you do get the chance to talk to him and you're interviewing him, make sure you're prepared. Goodness me, he's a difficult man to talk to when, when things are happening, things are maybe not going his way. You've got to be there with the absolute right questions. Otherwise, he will make you look silly. And he's made me look silly on many, many occasions.
Oh, and
but no, I get what you're saying about Neuville, and I get what you're saying about his statement about being a team player. It was actually me that he was talking to when he said that. And all these drivers are very good at playing the psychological card and saying things that that have kind of double meaning. They all know what they're up to, and I think Neuville was kind of laying down his thoughts with that, and he was making it clear that I think Neuville is almost at the point. He would do the same thing in the same situation, no question about that. But that's not the situation. The situation right now is that Neuville is the man that is the one that's in the box seat, and really the other drivers, their only option is to support him. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of response we get from the other Hyundai drivers and whether it's needed. I always believe that, to be a champion, you do need the support of the team around you. And we've seen it in the past. It's really important that you have teammates who are capable of taking points off your nearest opposition. And for sure, goodness me, Thierry Neuville, Tanak is very, very capable of taking points off Sebastian Ogier and Elfyn Evans. It's not a situation that perhaps Hyundai need right now to enact. They don't need to put that in place yet, but within a rally or two, it is very possible that they will have to say, they'll be forced to say, yep, our best chance of a title this year is Thierry Neuville.
Yeah.
All efforts go behind him. But I think maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit. I think anything can happen. As we saw in Sardinia, anything can happen when we go to Safari. Hyundai had a disastrous rally in Sardinia. Who's to say that Toyota might not have a disastrous one in Kenya? It could happen. It could easily happen that both Evans and Ogier could have very difficult rallies, and then all of a sudden, both the Hyundai drivers are back within a chance, within a reasonable distance of the boys at the top of the standings. So, yeah, maybe a little early to make that call, but it's a call that perhaps will have to be made a rally or two down the line.
Going down the standings, I'll have to say I can't make anything good or bad for Calle's performance, Calle Rovanpera. He is an immensely talented driver. I believe the speed he has naturally in him. He's a pretty big prospect, still a prospect because he's pretty young, and Toyota surely has two drivers that are ahead of him in terms of hierarchy and all, But he had an immensely good Arctic rally because, of course, it's his homeland and he raced there all those years. But then no points, in Croatia, no points in the stages in Portugal or Italy. He left them these two rallies with 2 and 3 points from the power stage. And he's 44. He has 44 points. He's behind Taka Katsuta, who has really, as we said before, made a big name of himself this year with his performance. And now, I can't say if that's a good or bad season or a mediocre season for Kalle.
Yeah, listen, any driver who is developing their skills and their talents as a young driver will have periods where things don't go their way. And that's exactly what we're seeing for Rovanpera. And it's a combination of things. It's a combination of small errors and very bad luck. The problems he had in Sardinia weren't of his making. But he has made a couple of small mistakes, and he has the speed. There is absolutely no question. He has the skill, the ability. It's just part of that learning process. It really is. And, as Jari-Matti Latvala said at the end of the rally, he took Rovanpera aside and said, 3 bad rallies in a row, that's nothing. A couple of times in my career, I had 5 bad rallies in a row. But we know what happened with Latvala's career. Latvala was the one that potentially could have won many, many world titles and didn't. Rovanpera potentially could win many, many world titles, and I think he will. So, but it's all just part of the process. You had a great start to the season last year, and for a while, he was up there. He was right up there. And we were talking until, I think, almost the penultimate rally of last season about potentially Rovanpera being a title contender, which was remarkable for his age and his experience. And, in some ways we expect a little too much from him. We forget how young he is. We forget how inexperienced he is. And we forget, as I say, that every driver goes through these periods. And, Rovanpera is just going through, just a slight hiccup in his career. And he'll be annoyed, he'll be frustrated, but he is the sort of driver who won't let it bother him. He has never had any doubts about his ability to drive fast, to compete for podiums, and ultimately to win rallies and championships. That has never been any doubt in his mind whatsoever. And these last 3 rallies well, that won't bother him. He won't be thinking, do I really have it? Am I as good as I thought I was? Nonsense. He won't be thinking any of those thoughts. He'll just be frustrated that he's not been able to show us what he can do. Croatia was a very, very, very silly mistake. But again, with young drivers, they make these mistakes and they learn. And it's how much you learn from them. If we see him making another first stage error this season, then we might say that's just carelessness. But, he will learn from all the mistakes. He will learn from all the adversity that he faces. He will learn from all the bad luck that comes his way. And it will all go towards making him a great champion. And you know what? I don't think we're going to have to wait too many years. He'll be almost certainly, in my opinion, one of the drivers to beat next season, and the following year, once we get into 23, 24, he could well be winning titles. So not a great period for him, but not a period that he's going to worry about or that any of us should worry about. It is just part of that process.
Yeah, he's 20 years old. He's even younger than me. I'm 25. So, I can't...
He's a lifetime younger than me.
Oh, okay. Don't give away your age. I mean, you're pretty young.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not anymore. I remember sitting at the table when Petter Solberg won his first world title, because we sponsored him. My company that I worked for sponsored the car. So I was at the head table. It was the dinner in Wales afterwards. And Oliver Solberg was in a pushchair, sleeping soundly as a baby.
Oh my God.
And now look what he's doing. We've just heard the news today that he's going to the Safari Rally. Yeah. So yeah, I've been around for a little while. I remember these drivers literally as babies. At times that's scary.
I mean, I'm sure Kalle has followed Harry in some rallies. Oliver, that's pretty good of you to give me that kind of pass, so I can go to Oliver. We learned today is Sunday for those that are listening on Monday, Sunday the 13th of June, that Oliver Solberg will compete in Rally Safari. Of course, he didn't compete in Italy as scheduled because he contracted coronavirus and he was in quarantine. I'm sure Petter and him are fine now. They are totally okay. But the guy is he's impressive, because even though he didn't have a viral video of him driving a rally car in the snow as Kalle did, surely his talent and his commitment and the fact that he really looks like he's enjoying driving, which is pretty, drivers in that age, I believe they have the stress, of trying to prove what they are in other situations other than, the national championships or what have you. But the guy really seems to be having so much fun, like his father did.
He's a special kid. He's a special kid, he really is. And, a lot of people say, Rovanperä, Solberg, it's all about the name. Well, the name is clearly a blessing in some ways. It's a curse in other ways. Both, Harry Rovanperä and Petter Solberg did big things in their careers. And when their children come along, it's expected that they will also do big things. And that brings pressure with it. Clearly, the opportunities these kids have got in their careers have initially been because of who their dads are and where they've come from. But they've had to prove themselves. And Kalle Rovanperä has proved himself at every turn. Oliver Solberg has proved himself at every turn. And there's no taking away from the fact that these kids are enormously talented, enormously talented, both of them. I think in slightly different ways, but they are both enormously talented, and they both absolutely deserve to be where they are, because there is no one better around at their age right now than they are. No question, absolutely no question about that. But, Solberg's been driving 600 horsepower World Rallycross cars since he was about 14 or 15 years old. Power, speed. I was there the day he first drove that Hyundai in Sweden. And again, as you say, he was beaming, he was bouncing all over the place. And he actually said, do you know what? It's not that fast. The top speed, it's not that fast. But he said, what is incredible, because he'd been used to driving this ridiculous rallycross car, which is stupid fast. But he said what is incredible about these World Rally cars is their ability to corner speed. And he got up to speed in that car really quickly. And that's the sign of someone who intuitively knows how to push the limits, how fast to go. It's the absolute trust in the aerodynamics of these new cars, because the aero is just really what makes these cars work so well. Group N cars are faster in a straight line. You know, you put a Mitsubishi, an old Mitsubishi from 9 or 10 out there, on a long straight, and it will get up to a higher speed than these World Rally cars will get. But that's not the point. These World Rally cars take corners at breathtaking speed, and you have to be absolutely confident in just how much you can push that car to get the best out of it. And Solberg, within 1 or 2 passes on that test stage in Finland, up in Rovaniemi, was putting in times that were quite remarkable. So it just shows the natural ability of both Solberg and Rovanperä is absolutely there, and they've been fortunate in that they have been introduced to competitive racing at a very, very early age. But, they've proved themselves every time from a very, very early age, and I'm very much looking forward to a decade or more of Rovanperä, Solberg and others competing at the very top. It's going to be a fascinating time for rallying.
Yeah, these two surely will be competing up there. And what you said about Oliver, sometimes the genes play a part. Not only he is the son of Peter Solberg, a proven champion, a rally winner multiple times. His mom, Pernilla, what a legend of a woman.
Well,
I mean,
absolutely. And the grandfather was a legend of a driver. Yeah, absolutely. It is in the genes. I'll tell you very quickly a story, and this is a story that always stuck with me. And I was always interested in sport and any sport. We were quite a sporting family, and we, much as I wasn't a rally fan, I watched the rally reports on the sports programs and all the rest. But the one thing that stuck out for me when I was younger was watching a program in the UK. We had a program called Tomorrow's World, and it was really about new scientific discoveries. And they had a feature, I remember this, because Colin McRae, clearly, growing up in Scotland, Colin McRae was a national hero. They had a feature on Colin McRae, and they had a neuroscientist do some work with Colin McRae. And they tried to work out how he could do what he does in a rally car. And this neuroscientist, he explained it really quite simply. He said it's a process. He said your eyes see something, and your eyes then send a message to your hands to react to what you see, and your hands then send a message back to your brain to say it's done. He said what's happening with Colin McRae is that part of that process is being bypassed. That message that goes from the eye to the brain to the hands, part of it appears to be bypassed. And he said, all I can say from that is that the only thing I can conclude is that it is a natural talent that allows him to react so quickly to what's going on in these cars in the stages. And he actually said, if you put me in a rally car every single day for 10 hours a day for the rest of my life, I could not learn to do what McRae does because my brain does not work the way his brain works. You can't learn it. You cannot learn that. There are some people in life who are born to drive rally cars quickly, and McRae was one of them. And what you're saying about the genes from the likes of Solberg and Rovanperä, I suspect it's something similar. Something similar. There's something in their genetic makeup that allows them to be able to drive these cars as quickly as they do. And it was a fascinating insight. And as I say, I watched that maybe 35 years ago, and I've never forgotten watching it because it just astonished me at the time. The fact that, McRae had something in the way his brain was wired, something in the way that the nerves work in his body that was just very, very different to the way the vast majority of people in this world physiologically react to things. There is definitely a bit of that in those two youngsters.
Surely. And there is another youngster that really has captivated our attention. It's Adrien Fourmaux.
Oof. Fourmaux, well, do you know what? I'll put my hands up and I'll say I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming with Fourmaux. Obviously, he's been around for a couple of years. He's been with M Sport for a little while, driving the R5 car. Doing okay. but not setting the world on fire in that car, not absolutely standing out, as say Ogier did when he appeared in the little Super 1600. I think it was Citroen in the early part of his career. You knew instantly this kid's special. Ogier is really, really special. For Mo, well, he didn't do that, but then he got into that World Rally car. And goodness me, in Croatia, it was quite phenomenal. And then he showed us in Portugal that he can do it on gravel as well. So for Mo, it's an interesting one for me, and it'll be really, really fascinating to watch and to see how he develops over the next 6 months, a year. I think he's going to have an opportunity to drive a lot more in that World Rally car. We will see him on the Safari Rally in a week or so's time. But how good can he be? He's another one that is really, really bright. He's a bright kid. Don't forget, he was quite well down the line to be a trained doctor before he gave that up to come into rallying. So there's no questioning his intelligence. So for Mo, for me, he's still really fascinating. I have to say I was delighted because he's such a lovely guy. Delighted to see him grasping that opportunity. What we've seen so often with these 2017 spec cars is that it's enormously difficult for youngsters to get into them and be competitive. What's his name? Henning Solberg's lad. What's his name?
Oh my God.
Forgotten his name. Sorry, remind me.
No, I don't remember either. I have to Google
Who
that.
am I thinking? That won the junior championship, then he had a few outings. Oh, and we still see him occasionally. Oh, goodness me. Oh, excuse me for forgetting his name, but
I'm sure Henning will not hear this show.
He might do. He might do. Really sorry. But yeah, he struggled in the World Rally car. And we've seen it before. Young drivers getting into the World Rally cars. Look at Pierre-Louis Loubet really struggling to get to grips with the World Rally car. And a lot of youngsters have struggled. And it's all to do with that ability to trust the grip, to trust the downforce, to trust the aerodynamics. And there are those who can, and there are those who can't. No, it wasn't Oscar, because it's his stepson. Oh, come on, he won the WRC2 as well, whatever we used to call it, the R5. Oh, dearie me, I'll remember in a second. Pontus Tiedemann. Excuse me, Pontus, for forgetting your name.
You didn't. Okay.
Pontus Tiedemann. Excuse me for forgetting his.
Why didn't I think of it as well? No, yeah.
I get this terrible thing where I get blocks. I get mind blocks on drivers' names, and it's particular drivers. The one that, when I used to do stage ends, the one that always got me every single time, I would forget his name whenever I was talking about him, was Tony Gardemeister. Every time. I could not get Tony. I had a mind block for Tony Gardemeister. It was very odd.
You have no idea what a legend of a guy he is here in Greece. They absolutely love him.
Yeah, I think everyone loves him. He was a character, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Cresta. We love Cresta as well.
Yeah, those two drivers drove for M Sport, didn't they? In the 2005 was it? 2006. It was Gardemeister and Cresta. But yeah, young drivers find it difficult. They find it difficult to adapt to the ability of these cars, because they're massively able, these new cars. And sometimes drivers just can't handle the pressure. They know they've got 2 or 3 or 4 events to prove themselves. They try to prove themselves too early, and all they prove is that they can't handle it. But what we're seeing potentially with Formeau now as well, potentially a different situation, but also young Gus Greensmith. He's had a fair opportunity in the World Rally car, and he is beginning to demonstrate real ability now. So, you know what? I think it's looking okay for youngsters for the future, and we could be watching quite a number of them fighting for wins in the coming years.
Yeah, plus maybe Huttunen.
Huttunen, maybe. Yeah, again, another one who, without any question, has got speed. It will be interesting to see how good Huttunen is when he does get a regular run, if he gets a regular run in that World Rally car. He's got talent. There is no question Huttunen has got good talent. I remember his first outing in a World Rally car was on a national rally in Finland, and he got well beaten by Takamoto Katsuta. So that I found very, very surprising. Very, very surprising indeed. But again, as I've said, some young drivers get into these cars and they struggle for a bit. I think Huttunen is the type of driver who might struggle for a rally or two, but will quickly learn, because he has a natural ability which is a bit special.
Colin, I believe we can call it a day. It's been a fascinating conversation with you.
Well, that's very kind. I've very much enjoyed it, and I tell you what, more than anything, I'm looking forward to getting back to Greece for the Acropolis. Really can't wait. It's not just my favourite or one of my favourite rallies; it's many people's favourite rally, and we have missed coming to Greece for rallying over the past, what is it now, 7 or 8 years since we had an Acropolis rally?
Last Acropolis rally in the WRC calendar is 2013. Jari Matilatvalas win with Volkswagen.
That is 8 years too many without coming to Greece for a round of the World Rally Championship. Can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. Look forward to seeing you all then.
I have two things to close up the episode. First things first. We should meet when you come here.
Lovely.
We should meet because it will be... and I have a best friend of mine works for another publication I used to work with and be editor-in-chief there. And he's a massive fan of WRC, maybe one of the top WRC correspondents and journalists here in Greece. And he absolutely loves your input and all that. I told him yesterday that Colin Clark will come on the show and all that, and you wanna, oh my God, yeah, that's great. He was pretty happy. So yeah, first. And second, I have to say, because I'm sure you will share the episode after it's published, and maybe some of English-speaking folk will have a listen. If they reach that part of the episode, which is the pretty far end of it, I have to say it's an immense undertaking for Greece to do such a feature. The government really pushed for it since 2019, having the first discussions after being elected. The amount of effort and people that have gone behind that return is hugely immense, and I believe the fact that it's coming back, it's a big testament to the WRCs and FIAs and the promoters, testament of having some part of the routes continuing their presence in the championship, apart from the newer rallies or the newer stages. The Acropolis is a big fixture, the Safari is a big fixture. And that's a big privilege of ours to have the monsters that are here, because let me tell you, you have been in testing here in Greece. The people that went for a test, which is nothing. You see 5 or 3 or 4 or 7 maybe passings through a really small stage, or something for about 8 hours of nothingness and then 1 hour of everything. You won't believe what you're gonna see in the mountains. On September. It's gonna be huge. I'm so sorry that I won't be there. I will miss it.
Well, yeah, as you say, I was out there for some testing last year, and it was phenomenal, the atmosphere. And you're quite right to pay tribute to the people who have worked so hard to bring it back. There was a lot of talk when I was out there last year about potentially the Acropolis coming back, and I thought, yeah, we've heard this before, and it's so difficult. Once you leave the World Rally Championship, there are so many rallies, as we've seen, that want to join the championship. It's so difficult to get back in again. But I know the Athanasoulas brothers have worked very, very hard. I know the Ministry for Sport and Tourism have worked very, very hard, and we thank them for their efforts, because the championship will be a better championship because of the return of the Acropolis. There is no question about that.
So, Colin, again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a nice distraction on my Sunday.
Oh, no, I'm a distraction. Oh, my God, I'm a distraction. I'm so sorry.
No, a good distraction. Talking rallying is always a good distraction.
Will you watch the England versus Croatia?
Yeah, I'll watch that. Listen, I'm an unusual Scotsman in that I don't mind England watching English. I don't mind watching English soccer, and I don't mind watching English cricket, and I don't mind the English doing well at soccer and cricket. So I am an unusual Scotsman in that regard.
Well, you play with them on Friday, so I believe you will be a full-on Scotsman.
Oh, I will. There's no question about that. There'll be only one team to win on Friday, but yeah, I shall be distracted again this afternoon by the soccer, and then next week it's right back into rally action, hopefully.
Great. Thank you so much, and that's the end of the episode. Thank you for listening to it. Of course, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course on half.fm. Until next Monday, bye-bye.